Welcome to PRAJNA SPARKS, a podcast where we listen to a Dharma talk, contemplate with our minds and in our hearts, and engage in guided meditation. In this episode, we're going to be exploring mind. Every episode of PRAJNA SPARKS takes hours to plan, record, and edit. We ask that you give us just a little bit of time today to subscribe and review our podcast if you haven't already. After your own practice, this is the best possible offering as it helps the Dharma reach new listeners.
Mind. What is it? We talk about mind all the time, even in a worldly context. In Buddhism, it's the fabric of all the philosophy, all the practice that the Buddha Shakyamuni spent his life teaching and teaches us to this day, right in our own experience. But what is it? We can look here and there in many different sources and find many different answers. From a scientific materialist point of view, mind is often reduced to either the brain or some kind of vague penumbra that, like heat from embers in a fire, emanates from the brain. Yet, it cannot be pinned down. More recently, there are a lot of studies on meditators, on consciousness, and so forth. But are those things mind? Are our thoughts mind? Our emotions mind? When we look at the Buddha's teachings, the Buddha's most basic explanation of what we are as individuals and what we experience in the world we consider to be around us boils down to the body-mind complex, or 5 skandhas, aggregates of 5 similarly classed things made up of the body, which is the body half of the body-mind complex, and then 4 additional aggregates, or skandhas, feeling, discrimination, karmic conditioning, and consciousness, which are the mind half of the body-mind complex. But all of those 4 things, feeling, discrimination, karmic conditioning, and consciousness, are consciousness. There are aspects of consciousness that the Buddha pulls out for special treatment because they have particular importance to the path of liberation and omniscience and to our practice. So does that mean that mind is consciousness? And what do we mean by consciousness anyway? We speak in a regular sense about losing consciousness if somebody faints, or being unconscious if someone's in a coma. We also speak of conscious in a much more superficial way. I'm conscious of my cat entering the room when I'm trying to record a podcast, and so forth. So what do we mean by all these terms? Well, part of the issue is that you can't pin mind down. It is classically difficult to describe, to label in any way. And yet, not only Buddhist thought, but spiritual traditions throughout time and culture are often trying to explain the mind, the heart, which we could say, for the purposes of our discussion today, is the quintessential sphere of our experience. There may be many other ways to describe it in many different traditions or many different teachings of the Buddha, but it boils down to something along those lines. The Buddha teaches us that our experience is colored by kleshas, which are any mental states, emotions, etc., that disturb mind's natural tranquility. So that sounds like kleshas is something that goes with mind, but are not mind. Then there are many different descriptions when we look at those 5 skandhas and we start to examine consciousness, we can see that different Buddhist heritages describe consciousness in different ways. For example, many will describe 6 types of consciousness, five sense consciousnesses, that is to say, the eye sense consciousness, ear, nose, tongue, and body sense consciousnesses. In other words, the consciousness that processes the information from our sense organs, visions, sounds, smells, tastes, and textures. But there seems to be something other than consciousness, which is embracing all of those consciousnesses, which is mind. If we go to the ancient philosophical traditions in India and then later Tibet of the Yogacara and Yogacara Madhyamaka, that 6-fold system of consciousness becomes an 8-fold system. Not because all of a sudden there's 2 new consciousnesses that spawned out of nowhere, but because it's a little bit more detailed, more textured way of explaining consciousness. In other words, all of these things are models, pragmatic systems that are used for the purposes of teaching and practice. From one perspective, you could say that all of these ways of talking about mind are metaphors, and they are useful or not to the extent they help us become familiar with our mind and eventually traverse the path all the way up to liberation and omniscience. But what is it? What is mind? Here's a favorite quote of mine from the magnificent Siddha from Tibet, realized master Gotsampa. The mind is that which is not found through searching. It is not seen by looking. If examined, it is found to be non-existent. If grasped at, it cannot be held. If dismissed, it does not go. If placed, it does not stay. If mixed, it does not blend. It cannot be split through division. It cannot be parted by separation. It is not known through looking. It is not realized through explanations. It cannot be illustrated by any example. It cannot be arrived at through any means. No matter what name it is given, it is not contradicted. What does that mean? We all have an experience of mind, or at least we think we do. What do you think mind is? Take a moment and define for yourself, needn't be in words, what your understanding of mind is. Here is one of many different descriptions by the Buddha Shakyamuni of mind. O monastics, radiant is this mind. It is defiled by adventitious stains. An unseasoned worldly being does not understand that in alignment with the true nature of things. Therefore, I say, an unseasoned worldly being does not have mental cultivation. O monastics, radiant is this mind, and it is freed from adventitious stains. A seasoned, realized individual understands this in accord with the true nature of things. Therefore, I say, a seasoned, realized individual has mental cultivation. This passage from the Papasara Sutta of the Pali Canon is explained in many different ways. For our purposes today, I'd like to point out that the Buddha is really refining a sense of mind. From the perspective of Kagyu lineage of Tibetan Buddhism that we practice, this quote is very much in line with Mahamudra practice. It points to the fact that mind exists in different states. When it is not cultivated, mind remains, as we can see in our own experience, full of thoughts, various tumultuous intentions, many different kinds of hindrances, is the technical term in Buddhist thought. In other words, impediments to the attainment of liberation and omniscience. Whereas through cultivating the mind, which is another way of saying meditating, one is able to attain states that are radiant. Another way this is translated is luminous. This luminous quality of mind is sometimes equated with states of samadhi, deep meditative concentration. From a Mahamudra perspective, these luminous, radiant, lucid states of mind also describe mind's true nature, which is the very purpose of samadhi, meditation practice, to encounter and instill familiarity in our hearts with that very nature of our own mind, radiant, luminous, and free of adventitious stains. This way of understanding a mind as luminous and radiant is very much in line as well with the teachings on Buddha nature in our lineage. For example, if we look at the text A Treatise on Buddha Nature by the third Karmapa Ronjung Dorje, in describing Buddha nature, His Holiness a Karmapa says, "Nothing whatever to clear away from it, nothing in the slightest to add." Looking perfectly at this perfection itself, on seeing perfectly, there is complete liberation. Because they possess the characteristic of separability, Buddha nature is empty of adventitious stains. Because they possess the characteristic of inseparability, Buddha nature is not empty of unsurpassably excellent qualities. In other words, this verse is saying, radiant is mind, by its very nature, not empty of unsurpassably excellent qualities. These adventitious stains are precisely that, adventitious, opportunistic. Because they possess the characteristic of separability, these adventitious stains are not natural to mind. Buddha nature seeing itself just as it is, without any conceptual overlays. That is complete liberation. In many ways, it's quite simple. This is very much the approach of Mahamudra, Dzogchen, and Vajrayana. Instead of starting from the outside in, with form, sounds, smells, tastes, and textures, the Mahamudra, Dzogchen, and Vajrayana approach is to begin with mind. Because ultimately, the important thing to know about mind is that it is the one thing that we experience directly, all the time, anytime. Mind is the quintessential element of our experience. It is the core of meditation practice in the Mahamudra, Dzogchen, and Vajrayana approaches to meditation, precisely because we can directly experience mind in its varying states, be they tainted by adventitious stains or momentarily freed through meditative experience or a glimpse of its true nature, and then ultimately, irrevocably freed of those adventitious stains. in realization. So we could say that mind is all of these things. It has a very close relationship to the brain. Tibetan Buddhist teachings often talk about the interconnection between mind and body, in this case the brain, as being like a rider on a horse. The mind is like a rider that leads the horse, but the horse has great power to move the rider along. Oftentimes, we may lose track of why we practice Buddhist meditation or go to teachings. To some extent, all of us do so because we want to feel better in our skins. We want to have a more easeful life. The Buddha teaches us about mind and how to practice so that we know mind directly, just as it is, without any impediment, because mind has immense capacity to heal, transform, and transcend the dualistic misperception that characterizes samsara. Definitely meditate so you can feel better as part of your wellness regime. And also remember that these practices can lead to the highest and most desirable wellness, complete and perfect enlightenment that is Buddhahood, complete and perfect benefit of oneself and others. May we in all beings realize the true nature of our mind, radiant, luminous, lucid, wise, and free.
This is Zopa and Yeshe for PRAJNA SPARKS. Be sure to join us every month on the new moon for fresh episodes. Stay tuned now for a guided meditation. Shivnee is our Tibetan singing bowl artist. Thanks for the generosity of giving us some time out of your day to like, subscribe, share, and review PRAJNA SPARKS. It really does help us to spread the gift of Dharma to new listeners. If you have any questions, contact us via email, Instagram, or Facebook. Check the episode notes for those links and for more resources on today's topic. Visit us on the web at prajnafire.com or follow us on Instagram and Facebook at PRAJNA SPARKS. Thank you for listening. May all beings benefit. Hello, friends, and welcome to the meditation for this episode. Today we're going to be exploring mind. In particular, our meditation is going to be aimed at gaining experiential insight into mind, helping us to determine for ourselves just what is mind. It can be helpful to have an idea of what is meant in Buddhism by mind, as this gives us the basis and grounding for what it is that we're looking for, what it is we're looking into. However, as we do the meditation, the main thing we're trying to do is just open to our own experience, that experience of the spaciousness, recognizing all of mind's contents, whether they be feelings, emotions, thoughts, daydreams, distractions, whatever it might be, observing them all without grasping after them, following them, getting distracted by them, falling into their storylines. Just resting in as almost a neutral observer, but not just neutral, curious, inquisitive, not taking it to be my mind, myself, what have you, but simply just recognizing the experience, being curious about the experience without all of those labels, ideas, extrapolating meaning from it, really just opening ourselves up to the experience of mind. To begin, let's settle in shamatha, tranquility meditation as we normally do. So take a calm, stable posture, settle into it, settle into this moment, letting go of any thoughts, plans about what we have to do, what we should do, what we're not doing, whatever it might be. Just letting it all drift into the background as we come into the present moment, here and now, feeling our body grounded, our mind settling. Let's take a few breaths here. As we turn to the shamatha practice itself, the main object that we're cultivating is one pointed focus of mind, using whatever meditation object feels appropriate. It can be the breath, it can be something in our field of vision that we can see, it can be an imagined object interior to our heart, above the crown of our head, in the space in front of us. In any case, whatever we choose, whatever feels appropriate for us, that meditation object is simply an anchor for our awareness, so that we know when we get distracted, even slightly, just letting mind's awareness rest naturally, easefully, but also quite alert on that meditation object. Let's practice like that for a couple minutes. In this clear, settled, alert, and spacious frame of mind, we can let go of the meditation object that we were using for our shamatha, and now just turn with curiosity to the experience of mind, moment by moment. As much as we can, tune out, let go of any appearances to our vision, to our hearing, to our tactile sensation, whatever it might be, any of the five senses, honing in on mind and its content, the inner world, what's going on for you right now. One of the wonderful things is we don't have to curate it. There's nothing off limits. There's nothing that we should or shouldn't do, aside from simply remaining still, clear, alert, and curious. So we're going to practice by resting mind in this spaciousness, allowing whatever thoughts, feelings, ideas to simply come up and leave as they may. We're not trying to make them last. We're not trying to drive them away. We're just observing, being very easy and alert to whatever is occurring moment by moment in this expansive field of our awareness. Allow yourself to settle in here. Whatever thoughts, feelings, and so forth might be coming up, it can be quite easy to get distracted, to follow after those thoughts, feelings, to get caught up in the idea of them meaning something that we have to attend to. But this is a space of meditation, and we can give ourselves the permission just to settle in and watch. What is your experience? What arises in this space? Pay attention to it coming and going. Don't grasp after any particular thought or feeling or any other mental event. Just be aware. Be precisely, minutely aware of the flow, allowing yourself to gain some experiential insight into this present moment experience of mind and its contents. After all, this is your experience. Whenever you have a moment of clarity, an experience of sharp, decisive knowing, rest one-pointedly in that until it naturally fades. And when it fades, also recognize that this too is mind. This too is an experience in the spaciousness of mind. Let's practice like this for 5 or 6 minutes. To conclude our practice, just take a few moments to recognize this is the experience of mind and its contents. No one has to tell you what it is. You're experiencing it all the time. We can gain confidence, certainty for ourselves in these exquisite teachings of the Buddha on what is mind, on how to tame it in such a way that we benefit ourselves and others, and how amazing and wondrous this experience of mind. Please join me now in sharing whatever goodness has come from this meditation, as well as the listening and contemplating that we've done, with all beings, ourselves included, such that the force of this merit may free us all, helping us to recognize the innate nature of mind, peace and bliss inseparable. Thank you for all that you do, and especially for all that you are. May all beings benefit.